Tonight, will Canadian oil be a target with Donald Trump's tariff threat? The president says he'll decide soon.
Tractors were up in here.
A Saskatoon man is accused of tracking at least 7 people by planting GPS trackers on their vehicles. Plus, a partnership between Regina Public Library and Birds Canada is making birding more accessible.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, January 30th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Hi there, thank you for watching. Saskatoon police say they have discovered 7 GPS trackers hidden in people's vehicles. And as Aishwarya Duda reports, police are warning there are more out there.
A 46-year-old Saskatoon man is accused of tracking at least 7 people by planting GPS trackers in their vehicles. In 2004, Marty Glenn Shira was convicted of kidnapping and sexual assault.
The trackers were up in here, right in behind the fender here.
2 trackers were found in Mackenzie Hansen's boyfriend's truck, but she believes she was the intended target.
I just felt super uncomfortable and uneasy, no idea who knows what about me. Essentially, he knows everything and I know nothing about him, not even who he is, so it was super scary.
Her boyfriend says he was working on his truck when he found the 2 trackers.
Anything could have happened, right? And looking back now with hindsight, we know that this guy has a history and that he's a violent person. And just that thought that something like that could have happened to somebody that I know and love is just terrifying.
Police believe there could be at least 10 more trackers out there. They say the investigation is evolving rapidly and that number could be much bigger. They want the public to check their vehicles now.
People are genuinely terrified that somebody is tracking them. They don't know why.
Mackie says people will have to look under their cars, inside fenders and wheel wells. You need to look for a device mounted with a magnet and concealed with some black tape. They could be tricky to find, but they're easy to install.
It's a little black box about that big, and it finds out where it is using GPS and communicates where it is back through a network of satellites. It's a pretty cheap subscription, couple bucks a month.
The device itself costs around $100 and is used in search and rescue missions. Some people put them on their own cars in case they get stolen. Businesses may use them to track their fleets, but it's illegal to install them to secretly track someone without their knowledge.
If you had a person you didn't like that you wanted to cause trouble for, knowing where they are is a useful way to harass them.
Gerhard says usually people will be notified if an Apple AirTag or tile tracker is in their vicinity or traveling with them. But most other GPS trackers are a lot harder to notice. You would need to know the frequency of the tracker in order to scan for it. Shira is facing 29 charges, including harassment, mischief, and intimidation. His next court appearance is on February 5th. Aishwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The provincial government has released the 2024 Domestic Violence Death Review report, and Saskatchewan continues to lead the country. The report found that half of all deaths took place in a rural setting. It recommends the provincial government take action, including on education and awareness, intervention for perpetrators, and victim-centered approaches. It also suggests legislation and policy around domestic violence, services in rural and remote areas, and infrastructure development.
And if there's one piece missing in this process, it's using these recommendations and the recommendations from the previous report to develop a specific action plan to address intimate partner and family violence in Saskatchewan. And an action plan has to include goals, targets, the actions, timelines, and evaluation, so we know if we're getting where we want to go.
Justice Minister Tim McLeod says the province is committed to following the recommendations. He says many of them are in line with what the ministry is already doing. President Donald Trump has now confirmed those 25% tariffs are coming to Canadian goods. He's still deciding if oil will be part of the tariffs, but agricultural products will be for certain. As Cameron McIntosh tells us, farmers are bracing themselves.
Manitoba is one of Canada's biggest hog producers. Millions are shipped and processed in the United States.
We sell actually all our pigs into the U.S. market.
John Nichols sends a truck each week. So yeah, tariffs make him nervous.
We obviously don't want it. Nobody really wants this or needs it.
pigs don't just stop growing, so it's either sell or slaughter them. Like poultry and beef, Canada is just too small to consume all the meat it produces.
We would have to cut back our production or, worst case scenario, shut down the farm.
Similar worries for Colin Penner. He grows grains bound for the U.S. Usually this time of year, he's focusing on his equipment. Right now, it's Donald Trump.
Even as Trump was elected in November, we said we better get our fertilizer home because something might go silly. We've locked in interest rates for the next 4 years.
Agriculture and agri-food account for 7% of Canada's GDP. 1 in 9 jobs, about 2.3 million people. 60% of our agriculture exports go to the U.S. This economist wonders how much tolerance Americans may have for rising prices.
Those prices are going to go up. Now, the big question is, how's that going to impact on the shelves in U.S. groceries?
Even without retaliatory tariffs, food prices could rise here for Canadian goods that are processed in the U.S. before being brought back to be sold here. Penner is looking for a silver lining.
There's always something to benefit in chaos, but I'm nervous. I'm definitely very nervous.
With billions of dollars at stake, there's a stark reality in agriculture. Canada, which relies heavily on exports, especially to the United States, would struggle to simply eat its way out of a trade problem. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, near Winnipeg.
Regina City Council is reviewing its animal bylaw. It follows an increasing number of complaints about aggressive animals and a lack of enforcement.
Children are no longer able to enjoy the community park as they never know when the dogs might be free and risk being bitten.
Wednesday night, several people shared their emotional experiences with dog attacks and aggressive animals. The head of the Regina Humane Society says data backs up the stories that were told.
These are animals. They are our family members. These are things that people are very passionate about. But when you're providing enforcement, it's based on facts and evidence. The Regina Humane Society has no authority to seize animals under the Regina Animal Bylaw. Zero authority to seize animals under the Regina Animal Bylaw.
The city hasn't reviewed its bylaw since 2011. An initial report is set to return to council by the end of this year. High school students in Regina might be getting a free ride. That's the goal of a new pilot project. City Council agreed to study it. It would make bus fare free for everyone under 18. Right now, transit's free for children in grade 8 and younger. The measure was brought forward by Better Bus Youth, a grassroots advocacy group. They say it will create a more inclusive Regina. And in Saskatoon, City Council passed a motion to allow rental electric scooters. That said, councillors did have issues about scooter enforcement and ticketing. City staff responded that police opted for education over enforcement in the scooter trial period, but that is likely to change now. An update on a story from earlier this week about a planned wellness and addiction center for Ochapowace Nation. Mosaic gave the band $500,000 to help build the center and to help deal with the opioid crisis in the community. The province told us the SHA would also be providing money once the center was up and running. However, the government now says that information was provided to the media in error. It's confirmed the health authority will not have a role in the upcoming project. Longtime customers aren't the only ones reeling after PV Mart's announcement this week that it is closing down all stores. The Al Ritchie Community Association in Regina was expecting a $10,000 grant from the company. Now, that's not happening. The Community Association is a charity that provides clothing, food, and social programs to people in Regina. It planned to use the grant money on its community garden and food insecurity programs. PV Mart has now confirmed the cash isn't coming.
For some, $10,000 might feel like it's a write-off, as something else. But for us, $10,000 is 1 month's wages for our staff. And so last year we went through some really tough times, and we really had to actually lay off our staff for a couple months because we just couldn't make it. And so that $10,000 for us was really counted on, and to hear that we're not going to get it's really going to make a difference.
Smart hopes the public will step up and fill the gap. He says he's happy to work with anyone who's willing to help out. The CFL free agent frenzy starts on Sunday, and the Rough Riders have nearly 24 players who could hit free agency then, but that could also change. Players like Jameer Thurman, Trevor Harris, and Malik Kearney have already been extended. New additions are also on the list. Quarterback Jake Meyer signed a 1-year contract earlier this month, and some other players are on the Riders' wish list.
We're getting the guys back. The team's starting to take shape, and so it's a fun time when you're starting to get them back, because there's excitement when you sign players back. I mean, look, we want players that want to be here, right? So, you know, it's fun when you're able to reach an agreement, and it brings energy to the rest of the guys on the team. They get excited.
The negotiation window that opens Sunday will close a week later. During that time, teams can make contract offers to any pending free agents. Training camps open up on May 11th. Cloudy and warmish out there today in Saskatoon. More snow on the way over the next couple of days to replenish anything that has melted. And then the return of the sun and the cold. Ethan will have more in his weather forecast after the break. Stay with us.
This is Saskatchewan now. This is our home. This is the 306. Afternoons on CBC are getting a new sound to drive home to, a new format to stream. We get real, we get curious, we dig into the heart of what's really going on, and we groove to the music of the 306. I'm Peter Mills, host of the 306, afternoons on CBC Radio 1. Give it a spin, you'll love it.
Whether you're new to it or a longtime birder, there is a new, affordable, accessible option for birding gear. Regina's Public Library has introduced birding backpack kits at its branches in a partnership with Birds Canada, and they're flying off the shelves.
Hi, I'd like to check out one of the birding backpacks.
Great. Do you have your library card?
I do.
It was something we worked up as a partnership together. Birds Canada was interested in, they have been working with other libraries across the country, and they were interested in doing some programming at the library. And sort of as part of this partnership, they helped us put together these birding backpacks. They helped select the best products that they thought would work for our community. You get a backpack, you get some really lovely birding binoculars, a quick guide to common species here in Saskatchewan, and then a copy of Sibley's Birds East, which has more detailed descriptions of the various species, their ranges, habitats, etc.
Alrighty. See what we got here. A lot of the times we see birders with these expensive binoculars or scopes, and it makes it seem inaccessible. And even the binoculars in the kit are really nice, and so it's like a really great opportunity for people to start getting familiar with binoculars and to get their hands on some easy to access birding materials to start learning their bird. Birding is definitely a year-round activity. Like even in winter in Saskatchewan when it's 30 below, birds are still out here trying to find food and shelter. And it's a great opportunity. I know we maybe don't want to go outside as much in the winter, but we can still kind of use those birds as an excuse to get out and just revamp that connection with nature even when it is really cold out. And there's a chickadee. Yes! So I think these kits kind of help a new generation of birders to start learning about birds. You know, some people start when they're 5, some people don't start until they're 55. Like there's a huge range of ages that can use these and just start connecting with nature. And I think more than anything, these birding backpacks are another way for people to connect with nature and start connecting with our parks and our birds.
Hundreds of Black homesteaders settled on the prairies in the early 1900s. Their lives are the focus of a new exhibit at the Dunlop Art Gallery in Regina for Black History Month. Along with photos, they'll also be screening a documentary, and exhibit curator Alyssa Fearon joined the Morning Edition to talk about it.
I think the idea for the exhibition, for me, it started around 7 years ago, actually. At that time, I had just moved from Toronto to Brandon, Manitoba to take on a job as a curator. And for me, one of the first things I like to do when I'm new to a place is to learn more and understand its different histories. And so after doing some research, this is how I eventually stumbled upon the work of a photographer whose name was William Billy Veal, who was an early Black Manitoban photographer from the 1900s. And I wasn't initially setting out to find Veal or his work. It just sort of it found me in a way. And it was through Beal's work and through his archive, that's what sort of became the catalyst for the exhibition, which has grown from that point.
I mentioned you also produced the film for Caesar. What is the film about?
Yeah, so in terms of the Great Black Migration, like I said, there were around 1,000 to 1,500 African-American families. Some migrated to Amber Valley for Alberta, but there was another cohort that actually migrated here to Saskatchewan. And they established their homes in a small farming community not far from Maidstone, Saskatchewan. And they named themselves, they called their community the Shiloh people. And so this is a pretty little known history about Saskatchewan. And so I was able to connect with a filmmaker named Cheryl Fogo, who's actually a descendant of the Shiloh people. And we decided to make this film together to really honor and recognize and celebrate the history of the Saskatchewan Shiloh people. So the film for Caesar takes place at the church that the people built in 1911, which is amazingly still standing. And we shoot the film and we sort of just learn about and talk about the history of this amazing group of people that sought refuge in Saskatchewan.
Our weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now just when I was getting used to fake spring.
Yeah, the real winter has returned for many of us and will continue to bring us the snow or the cold and, yes, some snow in the coming days here. We'll start with the cold. First of all, that cold front has been dropping through the province as we headed through Thursday here. Take a look at the range of daytime highs. +4 in Maple Creek, only getting to -30 in Stony Rapids. And as that front keeps dropping southward, many of us are going to continue to feel that chill. But it's up in far northern Saskatchewan where we're still looking at wind chills -45 to -50, likely at times as we head into the weekend. But of course, the cold, not the only thing we have to keep our eye on. We have a couple of weather systems that are going to be bringing some measurable snowfall to the province. It starts with increasing cloudiness as we go overnight into Friday. High pressure locking those clear and cold conditions in place in the north. Then we get into sort of the mid-morning hours as we get into Friday here in a line through south central, southwestern and west central Saskatchewan. That's where the snow is going to begin. For Regina and Saskatoon, this model is kind of indicating probably early afternoon hours we'll start to see the snow move in. But as this system moves to the northeast, we get kind of a blossoming of the moisture in behind this. And most south and central areas are going to continue to see snow well into the evening Friday. And if you're in east central Saskatchewan, including around Yorkton, probably till early Saturday morning. But that's not where the snow ends, because the center of this low pressure system starts moving in as we get into the afternoon on Saturday, and that's going to bring another round of moisture to areas that already received snow the day before. And again, Regina, Saskatoon, up through Prince Albert and La Ronge, I think by Saturday around the supper hour, that's when that next band starts to move through before it moves into northern Saskatchewan and things clear out for south and central into Sunday. So the first round on Friday, I think, is going to bring a general 5 to 10 centimeters, including for both Regina and Saskatoon. That second round really impacting central Saskatchewan. Some east central communities could be looking for upwards of 20 centimeters, maybe even a little bit more. For northern Saskatchewan, again, it's mostly through the Churchill region that we're seeing that range of maybe 15 to 20 centimeters. The far north, maybe at most kind of 5 to 10. That snow likely going to be causing reduced visibility on the roads as the winds start to pick up, especially as we get into Friday, gusting 60 to 70 at times. And then as that next system starts to move in, the winds will pick up once again. So Regina, blustery with some snow for Friday, and then the temperatures get a nice bump up for Saturday. Then our cold and clear conditions start moving in for the beginning of next week. Nearly identical for Saskatoon, but I think you may catch a few more centimeters as we get into Saturday with that second system moving through. And then some wind chills into the -30s. Temperatures getting closer to seasonal for Wednesday and Thursday, but still a bit below seasonal for this time of year. So in case you thought winter was gone, Sam, it's back.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders are up in Saskatoon this weekend. They'll be participating in the annual Winter Charity Classic hockey game happening Saturday at Merlish-Belser Place. Puck drops at 1 o'clock and the funds go to support the Roughrider Foundation's Win with Wellness program. We'll be back after the break. Israel and Hamas have carried out the latest round of exchanges as part of the ceasefire deal. Israel released 110 Palestinian prisoners and the militants returned 8 more hostages. Now, as some captives were being escorted out of Gaza, a crowd swarmed. The chaos led Israeli authorities to briefly delay releasing the Palestinian prisoners. In this first phase of the deal, 33 hostages are supposed to be freed overall. Israel believes 8 of them to be dead. Israel is expected to release around 2,000 Palestinian prisoners in return. There are no survivors after a deadly mid-air collision between a passenger jet and a military helicopter in the U.S. on Wednesday night. It happened near Washington, D.C. 64 people were on the American Airlines flight and 3 were on the Black Hawk chopper. Aviation investigators say they will look into every possible cause.
They will study the crew performance and all before the accident factors that might be involved in human error, including fatigue, medication, medical histories, training, workload, equipment design, and work environment.
At the time, the plane was on its final approach to the runway at Ronald Reagan National Airport. 14 members of a competitive figure skating community were on board at the time, among them 2 young athletes, their moms, and 2 world champion coaches. And Ethan is back with one last look at your weather.
And the cold air keeps creeping in for many of us. You can see that real spread in temperatures even as we go Thursday into Friday, down into the -20s through the northern grain belt, closer to -10 if you are in southern Saskatchewan. Downright cold still through far northern sections where extreme cold warnings are in place with mostly clear skies. We're going to continue to see those sunny skies as high pressure locks that into place tomorrow. But again, temperatures struggling to get out of the -30s, especially in far northern sections of the province. South and central, the attention quickly turns to the snow, which will begin moving into southwestern and west central areas by tomorrow morning. Into Friday by the noon hour, Regina and Saskatoon, that line is approaching us. And again, a general 5 to 10 centimeters through Friday as those winds start to pick up and those temperatures continue to drop as well, Sam.
Ew.
Well said.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Oh, that is it from us. For more news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to CBC Saskatchewan's YouTube channel. You can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or your tablet. Thanks so much for watching.